Let's check the latest news update with Vishal.
Hello and welcome to Friends World TV. I'm your host, Vishal Venkatesh. There's been a lot of interesting news that has happened in the last week, both in a national and global context. But as usual, let's get to the headlines first before we dive into the deep end of the news. A group of Canberra students have gained access to a major school network, and they have sent pornographic content to children across the Australian Capital Territory. Clive Palmer's legal battle with Western Australia is far from over, but urgent laws now have the potential to block this landmark damages claim. Canberra schoolboys once again have been caught driving dangerously on endangered grasslands that has actually been identified as a sacred site to the Indigenous community. Australia has recorded its lowest one-day rise in coronavirus infections in more than 3 weeks as the Melbourne shutdown continues. Mount Sinabung in Indonesia has erupted for the second time in just these last 3 days, sending a huge plume of ash into the sky. Russia's decision to skip crucial trials of Sputnik V coronavirus vaccine labelled reckless by Australian experts. And Ghislaine Maxwell, the infamous person, faces a strong likelihood of many years to come in prison. Now to the cyber safety incident first. School students have managed to access the ACT Educational Direct School Network, and they have unfortunately used it to send pornographic content to students across Canberra, including primary school-age children. Alongside links to pornography and requests for nude images, some emails went as far and disturbing as including photos of genitalia and dead infants. The ACT's Auditor General had previously said that the public service has a poor grasp on both data security and privacy, but the Education Director has referred the matter now to the ACT Police and the AFP, and they are jointly conducting an investigation, and results are yet to be confirmed in the upcoming weeks. Now to Clive Palmer. Western Australia's Parliament has passed unprecedented laws aimed at blocking a landmark damages claim said to be worth around $30 billion, but its extraordinary legal stoush with the mining magnate Clive Palmer is far from over as of now. The eye-watering claim, which amounts to the state's annual budget, relates to a long-running dispute over many years in relation to an infamous iron ore project in the Pilbara region of Western Australia. Mr. Palmer, Mineralogy and International Minerals, have an arbitration claim against the Western Australian government over decisions made in the early 2010s, just a decade ago, about the Balmoral South iron ore project. Mr. Palmer and his lawyers have argued proposals were unjustly refused, and this costed him billions of dollars. Legislation to block the arbitration and any liability by the state of Western Australia passed Parliament just last night, and this is of course just 2 days after it was introduced in the lower house. 4 teenagers have been caught drifting and doing circle work on a possible sacred site that is considered very special to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community in Canberra. It was done in the War Memorial area, and they've been fined and their cars have been impounded. The grasslands are also known to be important for several endangered wildlife species and, as I previously said, the sacred Indigenous site. Residents have, however, disclosed to the media last night that the teenagers regularly use this land for drifting, and the government has not intervened until very recently, unfortunately. Now to the COVID-19 update. Australia has recorded its lowest one-day rise in COVID-19 infections in more than 3 weeks as Victoria remains under strict and rigid lockdown. Official data on Thursday showed that there were 292 new infections in the past 24 hours, and this is down from 428 just last Wednesday. It is its lowest daily since the 20th of July, and Victoria had by far the most infections, 278. Its capital, Melbourne, had begun its shutdown on the 3rd of August, and it's set to continue well into the future. The authorities have warned that Melbourne's stage 4 lockdown, which is a stage that it is currently within, could be extended to other parts of Victoria if the outbreaks reach places like Geelong, Ballarat, Bendigo. And these towns are, of course, just west of the city, and they are not brought under control as of today. Now to the Mount Sinabung incident. One of Indonesia's best-known volcanoes has unfortunately erupted in a very violent fashion, sending an ash cloud of about 5 kilometers into the air upwards, turning the sky dark. Mount Sinabung in northern Sumatra has erupted twice in the last 3 days, and this is after a year of inactivity. Footage shows that a giant ash cloud rising from Mount Sinabung's peak, and local residents have shared a lot of footage around this incident on social media like Facebook and Twitter. Residents have been told, as of yesterday, to stay at least 3 kilometers away from the mountain and to wear masks, of course, due to the pollution. Mount Sinabung has been inactive for centuries, but it suddenly erupted in 2010, and after that, it's erupting now. Now to the Russian COVID-19 vaccine. For months we've been waiting about the announcement of a COVID-19 vaccine, but news from Russia that the world's first COVID-19 vaccine has been approved is hard to get excited about, Australian experts say. The Russian vaccine developers have skipped the all-important phase 3 of clinical trials. So what this essentially means is that it means that the vaccine has not been tested for effectiveness or safety on a large scale, and the rushed approval of Sputnik 5 is all about nationalism, according to latest Australian experts. This means that the vaccine named Sputnik 5 has not been tested for effectiveness, nor the safety on a mass large scale, and therefore it is not a reliable vaccine as of today. Now to the Maxwell update. US prosecutors ensuing Ghislaine Maxwell's safety is a key reason that she has not been isolated from other prisoners and inmates at the Brooklyn jail, where she is being held on charges that she facilitated the late financier Jeffrey Epstein's sexual abuse of underage girls. Miss Maxwell's lawyers objected to her being subjected to round-the-clock surveillance and numerous body scans at the Metropolitan Detention Center. Prosecutors, however, have disclosed recently that it is appropriate to closely monitor new inmates facing a strong likelihood of many years in prison. The 58-year-old has pleaded not guilty to helping Jeffrey Epstein recruit and abuse 3 girls between the years of 1994 to 1997. China has announced unspecified sanctions against 11 US politicians and heads of organizations promoting democratic causes. Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian said that the men had performed badly over Hong Kong. The number of Americans named equals the number of Hong Kong and Chinese officials placed by a sanctions list on the US. Beijing has already placed a travel ban on 3 of these men over the last month, and China has recently shown its determination to defy such pressures on Monday by arresting the leading independent media tycoon Jimmy Lai and raiding the publisher's headquarters. Those named, including Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, have already been singled out by the city of Beijing, and other senators, including Josh Hawley, Tom Cotton, and Pat Toomey, and Representative Chris Smith.
Administration policy. This, yes, in a response to sanctions placed by the U.S. on Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam and others last week, following Beijing's imposing of a National Security Act on the territory that is seen as quashing any hope for democracy for that area. A sign of the law today, the offices of the Apple Daily, an independent newspaper and news site which has been critical of the regime, raided by authorities. This is the first time the media has been directly targeted by this law. It's been feared that the freedom of press, which is existing there in Hong Kong, will be challenged. Also, the media tycoon and head of that news group, Jimmy Lai, he was taken away. He's the highest profile figure targeted by the law. Sandra, it appears that China going forward, undaunted by any moves by the United States and others to do what it wants to do in Hong Kong and elsewhere. Back to you.
That's all the news for this week. I'll see you next week. Stay tuned to Friends World TV for more news around the clock. Thank you.